From the Sheet Daily, noon Pacific time, Jeff Marek, who knows Patrick Johnson. We had a bit of a camera mishap there, but here he is.
I looked better a second ago. What do you think, PJ?
I was going to say.
Low angle, always the best way to go.
We got the dental hygienist view there for a second. Nice bridge.
See, you haven't really been flossing much lately, have you, Mr. Marek? Well, you're old enough to know better, sir. You don't need the lecture.
Every day.
How's it going on, guys?
Yeah, we're doing well, buddy. Wow. Honestly, it's like breakneck speed here. And this guy pulling like triple duty some days, 2 shows of ours in the province. It has been a busy week. Transformative week.
Make that money.
For the Vancouver Canucks. So we'll start right there. Yeah. What do you make of the transformation of the Vancouver Canucks since last Friday?
I think we're pretty much all on the same page that something had to give at a certain point. Like there was only so far you could go with this and try to salvage it, and it became pretty obvious that it was going to be JT Miller who was going to be the one not wanted on the voyage. And what you wanted out of all of it was calm coming after the deal. Now, I'm sure that it stings for a lot of Vancouver Canucks fans looking at JT Miller play with the New York Rangers. Like all of a sudden he's like gone to Lourdes and bathed in holy water and has come back healed of anything that ever ailed him before and is looking fantastic with his old team. Look, I think it's a bandage that the Vancouver Canucks had to pull off. As we now, more information comes out about, what happened previous. It was looking like this was something that had to happen, and it hit that sort of critical point. They pulled the trigger on it, and now you hope that the team responds positively. And look, like early returns, so far so good for the Vancouver Canucks. I know we're going to get to Pettersson here in a couple of seconds. Marcus, that is.
Yes.
And I have to be more specific, as we say in the Atlantic, about which Pettersson that I'm exactly talking about here. But overall, what you want right now is some calm if you're the Vancouver Canucks in the Vancouver market.
I appreciate using that word because that's the word Patrick Allvin used to describe Marcus Pettersson. He called him calming for our team.
He is.
Can I
jump on him? Go ahead.
I was going to say, you've seen him more than us, probably. Tell us about him.
I like him. And here's why I like him. I not only do I like him as a player, I like his story. And I can recall Marcus Pettersson. Well, first of all, he was a forward in Sweden until he was, I want to say, it was late, guys. It was like until he was like 16 years old. He was a forward, and I don't know why. I'm sure you can get it out of him. Why? I've got his agent on the show today, so maybe I'll one of those things I'll get into with Peter is how come he went from this high scoring forward to being an offensive defenseman, but he was considered in Sweden almost sort of a one-dimensional defenseman for the longest time because, like I said, he transitioned from being a high-scoring forward to being a defenseman. He's kind of like John Klingberg. In some ways, it was like offense, 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 offense. That's what you were getting from Marcus Pettersson, and he got the tag of being one-dimensional. And then, he turns pro, joins the National Hockey League, and all of a sudden he's closer to... And he's not this player, but I'm going to use this as an example. I think you know where I'm going. He's now closer to Matthias Ekholm than he is to John Klingberg.
Sure is.
He started as Klingberg, and he's gotten a little bit closer to Matthias Ekholm.
Yeah.
How's that?
I'm not sure John Klingberg would have worked here for the Canucks. God bless him. Where's he now? Edmonton? Edmonton, say yeah. God bless him in Edmonton. Score your heart out, John. So how do you think they did in terms of return on the trades?
I think the way that you like initially, if there wasn't an extension, you look at it and you would say, "What are you doing? Like that is a really high price to pay for a rental." I think the extension mitigates it. I am curious, as I'm sure you guys are, what else Vancouver could have gotten in exchange for that first round pick. Again, I always assume, that Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford have more information about the marketplace than I do. I just wonder, and considering how quickly the deal was made too, what was out there? What were their other options with that first round pick? The fact that they were able to get the extension done at a price point, which as the salary cap continues to rise, is going to look better and better for the Vancouver Canucks. I don't mind this one at all. I know that Vancouver's probably in the market for someone that can move the puck a little bit more than Marcus Pettersson can, but not a lot of teams are letting those types of players go. I like him as again, calming defenseman, a smart, reliable presence on your blue line. He's not going to wow you, but he's one of those defensemen where if you don't notice him, he's really doing his job. We've seen tons of these guys, and they tend to have long careers. Coaches love them because when they go over the boards, you know what they're going to do, and most specifically, you know what they're not going to try. I like that deal for Vancouver.
Seems like a culture guy, too.
He is? In what sense?
Well, Tocchet has already praised him for what he has added to the room, even mentioned in the final timeout against Colorado the other night. He's sitting there talking and discussing with his teammates and assistant coaches. And, Rick said normally the guys who just arrive are pretty quiet in those sorts of spots, but he felt comfortable enough to speak up.
Can I be stereotypical for a second?
Never.
Am I allowed to be stereotypical for a second? So I remember having a conversation, and now I always think about this. I remember having a conversation. It was after a CHL NHL Top Prospects game in Kelowna. I remember being at the hotel bar afterwards and having a glass of wine with an agent. And I said to this agent, I said, what I really find interesting about your client list is, I've never heard anyone complain about any of your clients. I mean, and that's right. This guy has like a lengthy list of clients. And he said, well, my recruiting policy is very deliberate. And I said, really? What's your recruiting policy? And he said, it's the 2S rule. And I said, what's the 2S rule? And he says, I recruit from the two most low-maintenance places in the world, Saskatchewan and Sweden. Because people from Saskatchewan and people from Sweden are low-maintenance people. That's my recruiting policy. And I know it's a stereotype, but I've always tried to remember that conversation. I mean, sure, of course, there's some Swedes that'll give you a hard time and some Sasky boys that'll give you a hard time. But by and large, painting with a roller, not a fine brush here, by and large, very low maintenance hockey players.
Happy to be in the NHL.
Is that what we are? Or they are?
Happy to be in an NHL market from some crossroads in Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
Does
that resonate with you, by the way? The low maintenance Saskatchewan and Sweden?
I have said it many times on this program. If you have a problem with someone from Saskatchewan, outside of a football watermelon environment, it's probably you.
The problem is you.
If they have a watermelon on their head, okay, throw out the rule. But if it's game day,
is that kind of like saying they always say that there's one jerk at every party, but I don't believe it because I've never seen the guy? Same idea.
Very good.
So you've been to a party with Matt then?
We're asking on our Surrey Mitsubishi poll question because the acquisition of Marcus Pettersson, Jeff, effectively is them acknowledging, we should have done Zadorov over what we did on defense and what we did last summer. Zadorov got 6x5 from Boston. Pettersson got 5.5x6 from Vancouver. Which one do you think made more sense for the Canucks?
To me, it's Pettersson. To me, it's Pettersson. I'll take Pettersson over Nikita Zadorov. Now, I know he adds that. I remember, who was it? It was Tom Watt. I'm going to go way back in history for your audience today.
Wow, former Canucks coach Tom Watt.
Right? Yeah. I'm going to go to Tom Watt, who would talk about his blue line, and he would use this line. He would say, on my blue line, I want the biggest collection of hostile, mobile, virile dancing bears. That's what I want my blue line to look at. And there is that sort of dancing bear element to Nikita Zadorov's game that we've all seen, and it's very valued around the NHL for the obvious reasons. Not too many guys do that anymore, and not too many guys play that game. But I look at that and I say, that type of physicality and that type of presence, I kind of look at it. If we're going to look at in automobile terms, it's a luxury item. You love it if you have it, but is it really necessary 82 times plus playoffs every year? Like I look at like what's the meat and potatoes going to be of your blue line? Is it going to be what Nikita Zadorov brings? And again, I'm not saying he's a one-dimensional, just like the gorilla goes out there and fires coconuts off the wall. Like that's not what I'm saying about Zadorov. But his calling card is the physicality, that nature of that physicality, more so than ever, and especially in the playoffs. To me, it's a luxury item. I'll take what Marcus Pettersson does over what Nikita Zadorov does all day long.
One of the standout memories for me was Zadorov was him leading a rush, the way he would get up the ice aggressively. Now, Pettersson isn't quite the same guy, but I talked to him on, what day is this? I talked to him on Tuesday, and he talked about how, in his early career, he learned quite early on that nothing moves faster than the puck. And he's certainly a guy that's going to move the puck. And so he gets the puck up the ice in a different way. Do you think that's a fair way to look at it?
I think so too. I think that's wise. And listen, I remember watching him play with the London Knights on that team with all those 95s like Bo Horvat and who else would have been on that team? It was Horvat, Max Domi would have been on that team. A young Mitch Marner would have been on that team as well. And that's what Nikita Zadorov did. And he was intimidating. But he was someone that could shuttle pucks quickly. But I look at Pettersson too. Like Pettersson's the same way. Pettersson, again, like he has a background of being an offensive guy. You see that come out in his game every now and then, don't you? Like, I mean, I'm not sure how many Pittsburgh Penguins games you guys have watched. Now, listen, he's played with Erik Karlsson and he's played with Chris Letang. It's like if you're making a choice between who you want to be moving the puck out of your own zone in those situations, with all due respect, Mr. Pettersson, it's going to be a couple of future Hall of Famers here. But he does have those abilities to move pucks quickly. But Zadorov has the same too. Zadorov.
Well, I was going to say, can I counterpoint you for a second?
Of course. I mean, no. How dare you disagree with me?
No discussion allowed.
Yeah, exactly.
This interview's over.
Stick to the talking points, Matt.
Yeah, exactly.
Stick to the script.
In today's NHL, there are very few guys who bring an intimidation factor who can actually play a regular shift. Nikita Zadorov is one of them.
That's true.
And we saw that in the postseason last year.
Yep.
Hard to quantify, right? Intangible more than tangible. But he put fear into other people. And I'm not sure Marcus Pettersson does.
He doesn't. Two different. No. Hang on. That is completely fair. It's interesting because this does wink at the nature of like what is toughness. Okay, like there is that type of Nikita Zadorov toughness. Like to me, there's two different types. There's what Nikita Zadorov brings, and there's what players like Borje Salming brought, or maybe a better example for this market, the Sedins brought. And this might just be a byproduct of me sort of, not that I'm some wizened person, like imparting in sort of brilliant knowledge here, but the older I get, the more I look back at the Sedins and say that their brand of toughness to me was more impressive than Nikita Zadorov knocking everybody around. Because, and much like Borje Salming before the Sedins, I mean, they were punched and slashed and cross-checked and assaulted, and referees tied their skates as they were getting maimed, and they never changed their game a bit. Cross-checked in the head, jumping over the boards next shift, nothing's changed. Play the exact same way. Game in, game out. To me, that's tough, and that gets players respect, and I think that is a brand of toughness. Like there's two things, right? Like there's the ability to intimidate physically, and then there's a toughness that says, I'm not going to get intimidated. What's more valuable, right? Like the intimidation is like, oh, wow, he's gonna really hurt me if I go into his corner, or I gotta stay away from him. Or give me the person. Like, what do you want more? The person that can inflict it, or the person that can endure it? I want teams that can endure it.
For sure.
And maybe that may be a Canadian
point,
thing,
Jeff.
but I want teams that can endure that and won't change how they play.
Especially when they're playing the minutes of a Henrik, a Daniel Sedin, or Borje Salming, right? Like when you're talking about a guy who's going to play 20-plus minutes a night, no, I'm 100% with you. Before we leave these trades, because I do want to get on to Carson Soucy and the Four Nations here,
Sure.
Your old pal Elliot had in his 32 Thoughts this week that,
oh, my goodness.
The Canucks outmaneuvered Edmonton and Vegas for Drew O'Connor as part of that Pittsburgh trade. A word or two on Mr. O'Connor. Yeah.
He's one of those guys that sort of has kind of, first of all, it's tough to get a headline if you play on a team of future Hall of Famers like the Pittsburgh Penguins. Good on Rutherford Alvin for recognizing that and outbidding. Edmonton has a very sort of narrow way that they can do business here to get players at this point, given their cap situation, their Kane situation on the horizon. Vegas is fascinating because, essentially whatever Kelly McCrimmon wants, Kelly McCrimmon gets. As you bring up Vegas as a side point, they have been the last 4 games all over the Buffalo Sabres. Now, I know Kelly likes to have a lot of eyeballs on a lot of different players. I get it. I think he said something like it was like 100 viewings of Barbashev before they made that deal. But there's been a lot of Vegas presence around Buffalo Sabres games lately. Do with that what you might.
We're talking 100 in-person viewings of a player?
That's what McCrimmon told me. I think
so.
The
that's like more than a season. Lot. So that's over several years.
No,
wow.
No. So McCrimmon plays long game.
Wow.
McCrimmon plays like, to me. He's one of the. I know he's sort of like, I'm just a good old Canadian. But no, like he is that guy. Kelly McCrimmon is like laser focused, elite thinking manager here. Like, don't worry, he's the chess player. He's got a number of different sort of moves that are on the horizon and players that he has his eyeballs on. Barbashev was not just like now he's available, I guess we should get some eyeballs in there. Boys, let's get to some St. Louis Blues games here. Like that's not Kelly McCrimmon. He's a good surveyor of the entire NHL. Good on Vancouver for recognizing this. I don't know that it's really much of a secret around the NHL that this guy's a real solid player. So, Edmonton right now kind of has a slotting issue for a lot of their players, right? Like, where does Jeff Skinner slot? Where does Kasperi Kapanen slot, right? And not that you would look at Drew O'Connor and say, like, okay, well, you're going to go into a mix like Skinner and Kapanen find themselves right now, but where's that position right now with the Edmonton Oilers? Good on Vancouver for recognizing this one. That's a good win.
So word is that Carson Soucy is available to anyone who is interested. Mm-hmm. Who do you think will be interested in Carson Soucy if he is to be traded?
Excuse me, PJs. You were saying, yeah. I mean, Calgary does make a lot of sense, but doesn't Carson Soucy fit that classic? Everybody wants depth defense at trade deadline.
Yeah, well,
like available to everybody because everybody wants
to trade him away.
Why would you trade him to your direct competitor for a playoff spot? Like they may be interested, but unless you're getting an absolute can't refuse, way too much value trade, I don't know why you would choose to strengthen a direct competitor.
Don't disagree at all. I'll throw another one out at you. It wasn't too long ago when he was in Seattle that Edmonton was very interested and tried to secure the services of one Carson Soucy. Should come as no surprise. Are they in that same spot now? No. Mm-hmm. I would be more than a little bit surprised if that's what ended up happening. But listen, Calgary would have interest. But if you're the Vancouver Canucks, unless it's a tape measure home run, you're not doing it with a team that you're battling for a playoff spot unless you're getting it out. Because I saw like right away, everyone's Calgary. We all know he's Alberta boy, Sherwood Park, I believe. So it does sort of line up there. But I don't think if you're Vancouver, you're really considering that unless it's one of those. The only way we're doing this is if we're winning this deal. To me, you try to send them as far away as possible.
Okay, we got to be quick here, but
okay.
When is it? Monday is the deadline for Four Nations. What do you think on Hughes? And what do you think at large on
this one? Is
guys saying thanks, but no thanks.
We've already seen one, and man, is he ever gutting it out game in and game out with the Vegas Golden Knights, and that's Alex Pietrangelo. This one's a delicate one. I've always maintained that this is a tournament where managers will put their NHL face on and smile and talk about how great it is for the league and, chumming of the waters for international hockey. And this is wonderful with their, fingers crossed behind their backs and just hoping that none of their players get injured, knowing full well that in events like this, they do. And I think there's, this sort of the ghosts of John Tavares in the background, the ghosts of Dominik Hasek in the background, scotching their team's chances in the playoffs after international hockey injuries. If you're the Vancouver Canucks, this one is really sensitive because you don't want to sour the relationship with Quinn Hughes. At the same time, you don't want to sour your chances of being involved in the playoff picture. I think this is like one of the most delicate conversations you can have in the NHL, and that is how do you. You want to talk about diplomacy, the art of diplomacy. This is going to take a real fine threading of the needle here to sort of convey to Quinn Hughes that you're not going to say don't do this, but at the same time, make sure that he understands the bigger picture of the season, and that is the Vancouver Canucks, the playoffs, and the Stanley Cup. So this one is a trick. This is gonna bring together all of the experience that Jim Rutherford has had in his NHL career, going back to when he was a rookie goalie with the Detroit Red Wings.
I always like to hit you with the tidbit at the end because
I love this. All right.
You cover so much ground, and
Dancing Bears, agile, virile, hostile. What? No. Okay.
And to be clear, not all of these guys were on the same single London Knights team. I took a swath of 2 years with the London Knights.
Okay.
Mitch, how's this for a junior team?
Yeah.
Mitch Marner, Bo Horvat, Max Domi, Nikita Zadorov, Christian Dvorak, Michael McCarron, Josh Anderson, Chris Tierney, Ole Mata. Who was the goalie, Jeff Marek?
Was it Michael Hauser?
He may have been one of the goalies, but he is not the goalie that I'm thinking of. You don't have to look too far from your hometown, or you don't have to look too far from where you sit right there.
Oh, no way, really?
Anthony
No
Stoll.
way. Mm-hmm. Wow, yeah.
1, 2,
and because
3,
he had just come in from, was it Omaha, Nebraska? If you have that in front of you?
Yes. 8 games.
Right?
Very good, Nebraska, Omaha. How about that? 10 NHL players.
That's pretty good.
Over a couple of years on one major junior team. Although
they lost the Memorial Cup that they hosted. They didn't win a single game. Edmonton Oil Kings won that one. But then they won it in Red Deer with a top line of Matthew Tkachuk, Mitch Marner, and Christian Dvorak.
Wow.
Which is one of the best junior lines I've ever... Now, listen, the London Knights, like Dale Hunter would always... run those guys out for the full 2 minutes on power plays. Like, it's the old London Knight trick. Like, Rick Nash got this trick. All the guys in London got this treatment. But the other line that I always compare it to, my sort of measuring stick, was that old Kamloops line of Shane Doan, Jerome McGinley, and Darcy Tucker, which I still think was the best junior hockey line I ever saw.
Sensational. In fact, the coach in Calgary won some Memorial Cups there in Kamloops as part of those teams. Yeah. And I'll say this about the London Knights and the Hunters. Unlike your agent friend with the 2 S's, those guys recruit worldwide. It's supposed to be an Ontario league, somehow guys from everywhere wind up in London with the Hunters.
I will say one thing. Mark Hunter may be the Mark Hunter is one of the hardest working people I've ever seen in hockey, period, full stop. Like, and everyone's had this experience. It's like every rink you go to, Mark Hunter is either there or was just there.
Yeah,
and like he's left his coffee still half drank and it's still like it's still hot.
I think the Hunters
here 2 periods
I think
there.
The Hunters were onto cloning early. I think there are 2 Mark Hunters. One scouts internationally, one scouts domestically. Yeah. We're out of time. We'll be listening this year, watching the sheet. Thank you, sir. Until next week.
Maddie, thanks. Good to be on with you, PJ.